Hi, Action Readers. My name is Todd Olson, and I wrote this month's nonfiction feature about the Navajo Code Talkers of World War II. The Code Talkers were Navajo men who developed a top-secret code from their own language that helped the United States and its allies win the war. I had read about these inspiring heroes before, but there was still a lot I didn't know, so I was excited to start researching. So the first thing I did was to see if there were primary sources available. A primary source is a first-hand account from someone who experienced the event. So journals, interviews, and even photographs can count as primary sources. These are the sources that really make a story come alive. So a YouTube search turned up a bunch of oral histories, clips of code talkers telling their stories out loud to an interviewer. I also found a memoir by a code talker named Chester Nez. So once I had found my primary sources, I read a few books, watched a documentary, and explored other secondary sources. Those are sources written or created by people who didn't experience the event themselves. And that's when I came across someone who ended up helping me frame my story. So Zani Gorman is a historian who studies the Code Talkers. She has a very personal connection to the story, and she turned out to be a fantastic source. So I wanted to give you the opportunity to hear from her too.
My name is Zani Gorman, and I am the daughter of a Navajo code talker. My father was Carl Gorman, and he was one of the original Navajo code talkers of World War II. I am a public historian, and I do a lot of work also with museums and archives. The Navajo culture is very vibrant, very rich. We still speak our language. We are a large tribe, one of the largest tribes in the United States. And we live on some of the most beautiful country there is in this nation. So obviously, with my father being a code talker, I grew up with the story. And my first recollections of the Navajo code talkers was in the very late 60s and early 70s. And they started an association, the Navajo Code Talkers Association. And I would get, of course, dragged to everything my parents went to. So that was kind of my earliest memories of the Navajo Code Talkers, was really being bored to death. But, over the years, I started to become aware of who these men were. And by the time I got to be a young woman in my 20s, ready to go to college, I took a more serious interest in my father's story, partly because my father was a member of the original group, the pilot group. They were the ones that were recruited specifically to test the idea to see if it was even going to be feasible. And so I got very interested in their story because no one had ever really, looked at their story. Their experience overall is a story of resiliency. As Native people in this country, our history is filled with a lot of points and moments in time when the United States attempted to eradicate our culture and our language. And so the irony of the United States coming forward during World War II and saying, can you use your language to help us win World War II, which it did very successfully, it's very ironic. So for us as Native people, their story is more about the resiliency of Indigenous people and the ability to maintain our languages and to show the world that, our language is important, not because necessarily it helped to win the war, but that it's still here.
I hope you enjoyed getting to hear from Zani and me about how this article came to be and why it's an important story. Now open your issue of Action to read Unbreakable, the incredible true story of the Navajo Code Talkers.